Open up the depths of your heart to find eternity and live for more than your eyes can see. Give God the glory for all eternity.
Did Jesus take his place on the throne of David in the first century, or are we still waiting for him to do so? We've been on a journey to answer this question. That journey began at this video that I've linked right up here. If you're starting here in the middle, I hope you'll stop and go back to watch all of these videos in order. In this video, we're going to learn what the author of Hebrews had to say about Jesus and the throne of David. In our last video, we saw how James made an argument in Acts 15 that makes a bold statement of fulfilled prophecy. The context is a discussion of whether God accepts Gentiles without their being circumcised. James goes back to a prophecy made by Amos to prove that God had intended all along to accept the Gentiles. James is telling everyone present, and you and me for that matter, that God's acceptance of the Gentiles was fulfilled prophecy. However, in that text of Amos 9, 11, and 12, God said he would do something else. In that day I will raise up the fallen booth of David and wall up its breaches. I will also raise up its ruins and rebuild it as in the days of old. The word booth refers to a tent or tabernacle and was a reference to the house of David. James is saying that God has fulfilled this. Included in this is rebuilding it as in the days of old. No one present was surprised at that. It was preached by Peter in Acts 2, and here's a video on that. Now, I want to take you to Psalm 110, verse 1, which says, "Sit at my right hand until I make thine enemies a footstool for thy feet." Every Bible student will recognize that as being fulfilled. Just to track down a few references, look at Acts 2, verses 34 through 36. In that Pentecost sermon, Peter declared Jesus to be at God's right hand. Paul did the same in Ephesians 1:20, and he also declared Christ's position to the Colossians in Colossians 3:1. Of particular interest here is what the author of Hebrews had to say. Is all of the prophecy quoted in Hebrews 1 fulfilled? He quotes it as fulfilled, but look at what he presents. In Hebrews 1:13, we read this, "But to which of the angels has he ever said, 'Sit at my right hand until I make thine enemies a footstool for thy feet'?" Well, that's a quote from Psalm 110:1, and is an obvious statement of fulfilled prophecy. Surely no Bible believer denies Jesus is reigning at the right hand of God. We'll hold that place and consider what the prophet Zechariah prophesied in Zechariah 6:12 through 13. "Then say to him, Thus saith the Lord of hosts, Behold, a man whose name is Branch, for he will branch out from where he is, and he will build the temple of the Lord. Yes, it is he who will build the temple of the Lord, and he who will bear the honor and sit and rule on his throne. Thus he will be a priest on his throne, and the council of peace will be between the two offices." We see here that the Messiah, who is Jesus, would rule on his throne, but that he would also be a priest on his throne. The ruling on his throne would be at the same time as being a priest. The council of peace would be between the two offices. But now we have an incredible detail from back in Psalm 110. Verse 4 says, "The Lord has sworn and will not change his mind. Thou art a priest forever, according to the order of Melchizedek." Psalm 110 also has the Messiah ruling and serving as priest at the same time. Well, why is it incredible that he would be a priest and rule at the same time? Well, it's because the Messiah had to descend from David and thus had to be from the tribe of Judah. But high priests could only lawfully be taken from Levi and from one specific family, that of Aaron. Okay, so he's reigning at the right hand of God, you say. So what? We all know that. But look back at Hebrews 1, 3 through 5. In verse 3, we find that he sat down at the right hand of the majesty on high. And then verse 5 quotes 2 Samuel 7:14. I will be a father to him, and he will be a son to me. That's in God's promise to seat David's descendant upon David's throne. This divinely inspired author is telling the Hebrew Christians that Jesus has fulfilled the prophecies of messianic position. Most notably for our study, the throne of David. What was it we found one dictionary saying? Not one reference can be found that connects Christ's present reign with the Davidic throne. Well, unless I've missed my count, that's the third one we found. We've brought up an interesting detail, however, that I need to pursue in our next video. If Jesus couldn't lawfully be a king and priest at the same time, then how does that work? Well, I hope you'll return and join me for that study in our next video.